Deuteronomy 21, verses 18 through 21. Young people, now please pay close attention. This is what happened to young men and young women when they disobeyed their parents. And I'm not talking about refusing to take out the trash. I mean somebody that really got to the point where they hated mom and dad and would not obey anymore. Here's what happened. In the old days, you better thank God you're under grace today. Deuteronomy 21, beginning to read at verse 18. If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him, that is, they whipped him and disciplined him, will not hearken unto them, verse 19, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him, and bring him out unto the elders of his city, and unto the gate of his place, and they shall say unto the elders of his city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Look at this, verse 21. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones that he die, so shalt thou put evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. That's the law of Almighty God. That came from the throne room of God. No man made that up. You think that's a little strict, a little severe? This is the last resort, and when it gets that bad, God said, you are going to have to stone your own son or daughter to death, because they will not listen, they will not obey. Better that than to let this cancer spread throughout the camp of God. Heavy, heavy stuff. Now we're going to see what the rock and roll revolution is all about. I don't have it right here. I didn't have time to search for it in my files at home, but I remember it. There was an article in the newspaper not very long ago, and it was about all of these crazy, perverted talk shows on TV. Have you ever seen anything like it? They trot out every nut, homo, witch, weirdo. Where do they get these people? I'm beginning to think some of them are actors that are paid in the back room. I don't know, but out they come with all their various perversions. And one of these talk shows I was reading about in a newspaper article was about children who were rebellious and violent and couldn't be controlled. And they had a 9-year-old kid on there with his mother. And they were talking about how he would beat his mother and hit her, and nobody could do anything with him. And then they got that studio audience comments, and a man stood up and said, you leave that kid alone with me for 5 or 10 minutes, and we'll have that whipped out of him. Do you know what the young boy said, 9 years old? Stood up and screamed, 9 years old, and said, I'll blow your brains out. At 9 years old. Let me read where do you get that attitude? Let me read something for you here, please. This is from one of these up-and-coming rock and roller types. It's a band called Saigon Kick. This is what the young people are reading in the rock magazines, and the man's name is Matt Kramer. Here's what he says, quote, he's talking about cable TV rock and roll show. Quote, the fans would get to pick who they wanted to be killed, like people on death row, murderers, rapists, and terminally ill people. The way you kill them is with a tree shredder. They jump through a tree shredder, and it sprays all over these T-shirts. At the end of the day, you can get a T-shirt. If the victim gets stuck, you can actually use a mallet to beat him through. You pay to beat him to death. Cool, huh? That's what the young people are reading when they buy the rock and roll magazines. That's what the rock and rollers are saying. Why don't you get somebody that's terminally ill or of no use to society, somebody like your mom and dad when they get too old, and why don't you just put them in a tree shredder and we'll put it on cable TV? You don't think that could ever happen? That kind of stuff happened in Rome Circus Maximus, didn't it? Shed blood by the bucket load while people cheered. See, human nature hasn't changed, and there is no depth that man will not sink to without the Spirit of God. These are terrible, terrible times to be alive, but it's also very exciting now. Don't let paranoia grip you. Don't let Satan shake you. In the midst of all this, God raises up a holy remnant. Except the Lord of hosts had left unto us a very small remnant. We should have been as Sodom, and we should have been like unto Gomorrah, Isaiah 1:9. God has a remnant, and I believe part of that remnant's right here. Let's go ahead and turn our lights off, please, and we'll show you some slides and read some more stuff. I'm going to show you the comments from these rock and rollers over the years. And rock and roll revolution, rock and roll rebellion, that's what this is about. By the way, that's a man. You see, this is what Satan wants people to be. And you look at the pictures of these guys, and they look like they just sat on a tack somewhere or been plugged into some kind of a light socket. All that rage and all that anger. Now, the kids take it seriously. We think it's funny, but they imitate it. Let's go to the next one, please. This is a T-shirt that you're able to order from the rock and roll magazines. Rock free, no cross, no Christ. That's what they're saying. Get rid of Christianity. That's restrictive. That's the enemy. This is what they're telling kids. Christianity is the enemy. You fight that thing and rebel against it. We're going to go ahead and show some video things. And let me set this up for you first. We're going to show a couple of video clips, and the first one is going to be 50 years old. It's a 50-year-old Hollywood movie, and the point that we're trying to get across is this. Music is not neutral. Music paints pictures. And by the way, I don't want to take credit for this concept. I first heard about the idea of music painting pictures years ago on a tape of another evangelist, and I don't know who he is. I would love to give him credit if I knew his name. I do not know. This is years ago. Music paints pictures. And what I would like you to do, please, is concentrate on the soundtrack. This is the best example I could find of the days of Hollywood, the glory days back in the 40s and the 30s when the soundtracks were heavily orchestrated. And you tell me, is music neutral or not? We'll go ahead and turn some of our lights off, please, so that we can see our screen. We don't have to have complete darkness, but just enough so we can see. And brother, I'll give you a cue here in just a minute. Is music neutral? And Sister Allison will go ahead and have our volume up on this. We'll go ahead and listen to the audio on the video. Ready? Go ahead. Is music neutral? Concentrate on the soundtrack.
Have you seen Mary?
Don't go through the woods.
Why?
Listen, the hunt is on.
But I want to help him.
You'd better come with me.
Oh, no, I've got to find him.
Come with me or he will find you.
Okay, brother, let's go ahead and hit the pause, please. Sister Allison, we will not have any audio. No audio up there on the video, and I'll hit the cassette deck instead. All right, brother, sister, we're going to start it again, and I'm going to change the soundtrack, and you tell me, is music neutral? Go ahead, brother.
Flintstones, meet the Flintstones, they're the modern Stones family. From the town of Bedrock, they're a page right out of history. One day, maybe Fred will win the fight, and that will stay up for the night. When you're with the Flintstones, have a yabba dabba do time, yabba dabba do time, and have a gay old time.
Okay, brother. You get the point? Music paints pictures. And brother, sister, when you change the music, you change everything. You change everything. If music was neutral, that would never happen in a million years, would it? Huh?